everyone, it's Jennifer. Welcome back to Effortless Knitting. I'm so glad you're here because today we're going to be learning how to knit this Finally Fall Knit Shawl. It uses just one cake of yarn and all the color work is done for you. And I know you're going to love knitting this one. So this shawl uses just basic stitches and it's a really fun, kind of relaxing, mindless project. You can kind of settle in and just knit away. So we're going to go through the whole thing step by step and stitch by stitch. Now you can get the full written pattern over at the Fiberflux blog. You can get the full video tutorial here. We're going to go through the whole thing together. And you can also get the ad-free pattern PDFs over in my Ravelry shop and my Etsy shop as well. Now, before we get started, be sure and hit the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux knitting updates. I share full project tutorials like this one, stitch tutorials, knitting techniques, and so much more. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button, be sure and hit it and get all the latest Fiberflux knitting updates. So let's jump in and learn how to knit the Finally Fall Knit Shawl. Okay, let's take a closer look at this beautiful shawl. So we're going to be starting at the bottom point here, and we're going to be working our way upward. Now, as we start each row, and we're going to go through this step by step, we're going to add a little increase, a yarn over, and that, as you can see, puts a beautiful kind of eyelet decorative edge along the edge of our shawl, and then we'll finally go up to the top, and we'll do an easy bind off, okay? Now our yarn cake is going to do all this beautiful color work for us. It's totally effortless. So we're just going to start from the bottom, work upward and outward, and then finally bind off at the top. Our finished shawl measures, if we start from this bottom point here and draw an imaginary line straight up, is about 24 inches. If we go from the bottom point and go straight out the side to the next point where this top edge is about 36 inches. And then the top edge of our shawl is about 50 inches, okay? Just to give you a sense of the dimensions. Now, this is very flexible. I used a full cake of the yarn that we're going to talk about in just a minute to get these dimensions. However, if you want to make your shawl much bigger, some people like a big drapey oversized shawl, you can add a second yarn cake and kind of like keep going with it. If you want just a little shawlette or a wrap, you can stop at any point with the pattern because we just add more and more rows and it gets wider and taller. You can stop at any point really, okay? But this is a full yarn cake that we'll talk about in just a second. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle to weave in the ends. A tape measure is super helpful. We're going to be making this nice and wide and tall. So if you need to do a custom measurement though, the tape measure will be helpful. Also, we're going to be using a set of US 8 5mm knitting needles. Now I grabbed a pair of circular needles just because we're going to be making a big wide shawl and the circular needles will give you a lot more space. If you have some long straight needles, that would be okay. Your stitches might be a little bit kind of smushed on there, but it'll work if your needles are nice and long. But I grabbed the circular needles to help me with that. So US 8 5mm knitting needles. And then let's talk about this yarn. This is a beautiful cake of yarn. I love the colors, a lot of earth tones, kind of landscape shades. And this is Lion Brand Mandala. I'm going to use one cake of this. As you can see, the color striping will be done for us. It's very effortless. And this cake is 590 yards, 540 meters, 5.3 ounces, 150 grams. And in case you're wondering, this is the Groot colorway. It does have a dye lot. So if you're using multiple cakes, then just make sure the dye lots match to get the most even color changes. Now, if you need to substitute yarn, look for a number 3 light on the yarn weight scale and 590 yards of that. Now you may notice this particular yarn recommends a US 5 3.75mm knitting needle. We're going up a couple of sizes just because I wanted to kind of open it up and give it a little bit more drape. So if you look for the number 3 light, you'll be just fine with this project. And again, 590 yards of that. So let's get started and make our beautiful shawl. This is so super easy. To begin, we're just going to grab our needle and our yarn, and we're ready to go. So what we want to do, we're going to do the long tail cast on. So if you're not familiar with this cast on and you want to try to practice it a little bit before you start, check out the tutorial I did of the full long tail cast on, and you can kind of walk through it. But we're going to just estimate a little bit for our tail. We're only going to be casting on 5 stitches to begin. We're going to start at the bottom point and work upward and outward. So we don't need to cast on that many stitches for the bottom of our triangle. Okay, so just estimate about 12 inches or so. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. Okay, wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop. Then take one of your needles. When you work, we're going to be working flat. We're not going to be working in the round. We're just using this for the length. So we're going to kind of pretend they're not connected, okay? But it'll help us when we get a lot of stitches on our needle. So what you're going to do is reach in with one of the needles, bring up that loop, and then just tighten it onto your needle. Now this counts as our first stitch, and I'm going to come in a little closer so you can see me cast on. So we're going to cast on a total of 5 stitches. So what we're going to do, just to give you a little brief overview of the long tail cast on. Again, if you've never done this before, check out that tutorial. So we're going to come in from the bottom with our thumb and index finger and grab the bottom here and then kind of open it up, and it looks like a diamond shape. I'm going to scoot that yarn out of the way. Okay, so now we have our little diamond shape, and you're going to take your needle and you're going to come up under the thumb, around the finger, and through that thumb loop, and then tighten without letting go. So that's 2 stitches. Let's do that again. Around, around, and through, around, around, and through, around, around, and through. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches on our needle, and we're ready to start knitting, okay? Now we have this tail. We're just gonna not worry about it till later. Now grab the other end, the other needle. Again, we're pretending these aren't connected. We're just treating them as 2 needles when we're knitting something flat like this. So for row 1, all we're going to do is just knit all the stitches, okay? So go ahead and just knit all the stitches, all 5 of these stitches. So 1, 2, 3. They might be a little snug on that first row. 4 and 5, just like that, okay? And then I like to give the tail just a little tug just to kind of set it into place, all right? Now we're going to turn our work and move on to row 2. So row 1's very easy. All right, so row 2, we're just going to knit the first 3 stitches. So let's do that. We're going to knit first stitch, knit the second stitch, knit the third stitch. Then we're going to yarn over and then knit the last 2 stitches on the row, okay? So knit and knit, okay? Now we just increased to 1 stitch, so we have a total of 6 stitches now instead of 5, okay? Let's move on to row 3. Okay, this is super easy. Row 3 is going to be very similar. So what we're going to do is knit the first 3 stitches. Knit the first stitch, knit the second stitch, knit the third stitch, and then we're going to yarn over and then knit those last 3 stitches, okay? So knit that next one, and knit that last one, okay? Now our work is very tiny, but it's going to start shaping up into a triangle very soon, okay? And finally, row 4. So flip your work over again. For row 4 is the row that you'll repeat over and over and over for the rest of your project. So if you need to back up the video and rewatch this next part, feel free to do that at any time, okay? So for row 4, we're going to knit the first 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3, and then yarn over and then knit the remaining stitches of the row. So as you make row after row, the remaining stitches will keep increasing, okay? So knit those last stitches of the row, and that's it. Very, very easy. So what you're going to do is just keep repeating row 4 over and over and over again. You can see we have like the beginnings of those decorative holes that you saw at the beginning of the video that run kind of up the sides. What you're going to do is just keep repeating row 4 over and over and over again until your shawl is as big as you would like it to be, or until you've used up all of your yarn, whatever comes first. I'm going to keep going with my rows, and when we rejoin, I'll show you how to finish up your shawl. Okay, so keep repeating row 4 and we'll rejoin in just a minute. Okay, so I worked on the shawl. We have just enough yarn to do the bind off. So make sure when you're making your shawl that you save a little bit to do the bind off, because you will knit a full last row getting it off the needles. Okay, so I have a little bit left here. I didn't want to take it too far in case you don't want to run out of yarn halfway through, but I have just enough to get me through. Now let's look at this shawl before we start binding off. I went from the bottom where we began and cast on our stitches, from this bottom point straight up, and you can see just the colors, how they've unfolded, so beautiful. But from the bottom point straight up, if you were to draw a straight line, is about 24 inches. So I went about 24 inches on this, and now I'm out of yarn just about, and we're ready to bind off, okay? So we're gonna go through the basic bind off just really quickly, but if you wanna see a more in-depth video, check out my basic bind off video because I go through it slowly and in more detail. But basically, now there are other ways to bind off. If you have a preferred way that you like to do it, definitely feel free to do that. But what we're gonna do is we're going to do this basic bind off, okay? So let me just come in a little bit so you can see better. And what we're gonna do is knit the first stitch. So knit that first stitch and knit the second stitch. And then you're going to take your left needle and you're going to go in that first stitch you just knitted, and you're going to go in with your needle and you're going to lift it up, over, and off and let it fall down. And that's it. And you're just going to do this all the way across. Now let me come in very, very close so you can see that in more detail up close, okay? So let's once again do it. Knit the next stitch, then take your left needle, lift it up, over, and off, knit the next stitch, lift it up, over, and off, just like that, okay? So we're just going to go through doing this all the way across. Now I did want to point out as a side note, you may notice my needles are green metal now. We started off the video with, this is the same size needle. We started off the video with this circular bamboo needle. These are the same size. I just wanted to point that out so there's no confusion. I sort of experimented with using bamboo and using metal throughout the project. I kind of switched back and forth just to see. So I just wanted to point that out. Again, same size needle, just wanted to experiment with some different materials, okay? Also, in the comments below, if you use different materials for your needles or have a favorite, share below. I'd love to hear what your favorite type of knitting needle is. So what we're gonna do is just keep doing this all the way across. Knit the next stitch, and then just lift it up, over, and off. Okay, so go ahead and do that across, and when you have just one stitch left, we'll rejoin and finish up our shawl. Okay, just coming up to the end here, lifting that last loop up, over, and off. And now we have one stitch left. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to take our yarn and we're going to cut it. But leave this loop on your needle for right now, okay? Leave yourself a tail about 6 to 12 inches long. If you have any yarn left, you can just put it aside and use it for something else. And then we're going to carefully grab this loop and kind of pinch it, pull the needle out and put it aside, and then take that end and put it through the loop. Be very careful not to let go of the loop. This is the last active stitch, okay? And then we're just going to kind of snug it down. Okay, now if you used a yarn cake like me, you'll just have 2 tails here. If you did your own striping, you may have some more, but however many tails you have, we're going to weave those in. So grab your needle, and then when we have these kind of self-striping yarn projects or any kind of stripes, we want to make sure that when we weave our tails in that we stay in the same color area, okay? Otherwise, this tail will travel through our work and not look as nice, okay? So our shawl is reversible. It looks the same on both sides, which is really nice because you can kind of throw it on any which way. But we do need to take care when we are weaving our ends in to kind of stay in the middle of the plies and not go, show too much on one side or the other. So what we're going to do is just kind of travel our needle through here, try to stay in the middle as much as you can. And because this is something we're going to be wearing, we're going to go in one direction into our stitches and then pull it through. But then I also like to bring it back in the other direction and then kind of straighten that out. It will, when you pull your tail up, it will kind of like draw it up. So you want to just kind of straighten that out before you bring it back down. And we're just going to go back in the other direction with our needle. It just kind of helps it lock it into place, especially with something you wear. There's going to be lots of movement, and you want to just keep that tail nice and secure, okay? Then just take your scissors and give it a little trim, and that's it, okay? You can kind of straighten it out, and it'll disappear, okay? It looks great. So now go to your other tail or tails that you may have and weave those in as well. Now this area, we also have an orange tail. It just happened to work out that way, but there's a little less orange to work with. So we don't want to let our needle travel too far down here into the yellow area. So just make sure when you're weaving your tail in that you just kind of stay in the same color area. Okay, we had a lot more orange to work with over here, but for this section, it's just a thin little band of orange at the top, the way the yarn cake worked out, okay? So the same thing, go in one direction, straighten things out, and then bring your needle back in the other direction to just help lock that tail into place, okay? And then just travel through, try to stay in between the plies of the yarn, travel through the middle of that, okay? And then when you're done, you can give it a little snip and straighten things out. So that is how you make the Finally Fall Knit Shawl. I hope you enjoyed this pattern. I had so much fun making this one. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest FiberFlux video updates. Bye everyone, and happy knitting!